I've had a few people ask me recently what my book is about, Poetic Prescriptions for Eternal Youth. It's probably going to be backwards when you see it. And so I wanted to read the preface for you because I could tell you that it's a book about going from self-hate to self-love by finding out what the scriptures had to say about you. I could tell you it's my journey of getting past trying to be what others want me to be to fit into society's standards of how we're supposed to look. But let me just read you from my experience. Is it just me, or do you also remember words spoken about you and your appearance all the way back to childhood, like a cracker you secretly put in your pocket to save for later and forgot about, now smashed in little pieces that you don't know are there, until you sit down and bits of it fall out of your pocket? Or each time you reach into your pocket and you pull your hand back out, you've got crumbs embedded in your fingernails. You've tried to turn those pockets inside out and shake away that debris, but those little word crumbs leave trails in your consciousness and attract other vermin to eat the scraps. Whether those words were from well-meaning relatives, lovers, or peers, something about them stuck. And not only do they seem impossible to get rid of, even with the best lint roller, but it also seems like those opinions are the absolute truth. And that hurts the most. Personally, I've heard hundreds of disparaging remarks, maybe even thousands. I've had lots of crackers crumble in my pockets over the years. More than a decade later, I can remember being told crunchy words like, "You're too pretty to be that fat. You look like a circus freak. Is that acne or do you have meningitis? A woman's face should not be that hairy. You have a blonde beard. You're not smart enough to do that. You're not going to succeed. You're too pale. You're too husky. You're too fat. You're too thick. Those lines on your neck make you look 10 times older than your face does. If you want to work in this business, you're really going to have to fix your teeth. Your lips are too thin. You need collagen. You would be pretty, but you look like you're from Nebraska." What did that last one even mean? I had such an unhealthy esteem and misshapen view of myself that I could literally bring myself to tears just by looking in the mirror. Though the mirror never involuntarily cracked when I looked into it, I believed I was hideous, disgusting, and not worth the dirt I was made out of. It really didn't matter if those crummy words were spoken by friends, enemies, or frenemies. What mattered was that I chose to believe them. I ate them all up and they destroyed me. I not only let them take up residence in my mind, but I let them stop me from pursuing my dreams, taking risks, or wearing sleeveless shirts on hot summer days, and getting my pictures taken with loved ones. If I did, I would hide in the back row so you couldn't see all of me. I let others' remarks stifle my life for far too long. Then, as if God couldn't have given someone a more difficult calling based on how they saw themselves, I felt compelled to come to Hollywood and be an actress. I, this hideous creature who couldn't stand my own sight, would now pursue a profession where all my flaws, every pound and every pore, would be blown up and magnified on the big screen. I would be in competition for roles against the most gorgeous people in the world who were told, "You should be an actress or a model." In my Minnesota coveralls and my yellow teeth in need of braces, I wandered into the epicenter of breathtaking beauty with nothing but a Chevy full of my belongings and a pocket full of chocolate, still covered in cracker crumbs. I remember when I first moved to Hollywood, and I sat awkwardly in an audition waiting room looking at these Barbie dolls who wore size 0. 0. I thought they were kidding when they said 0. My smallest friend in high school was a size 4. I thought just being in the single digits was a feat in itself. When my little sized 4 friend got out of high school and got pregnant, she actually had the nerve to ask me if she could borrow some of my clothes for a few months because she didn't want to buy any maternity clothes. Then she proudly told me after she had the baby, she didn't know what happened, but she was going to have to buy new clothes anyway because she was now smaller than before she got pregnant and her clothes were all too big. Ugh, some people's genes. Back to that audition and those size zeros. I didn't even know zero was a size. And wanting so desperately to fit in and make friends, I foolishly proclaimed, I'm a perfect 10. Size 10. They snickered and laughed at me and let me know when people are speaking of being a perfect 10, they're definitely not talking about clothing size. And once again, I felt like I didn't have what it took or the body that I needed to follow my dreams and do what I loved. I also knew for sure that I wasn't going to starve myself to fulfill my dreams. I had 2 friends in high school with eating disorders, one with anorexia and the other with bulimia. I didn't have the willpower to limit my food consumption. Quite the opposite. I could eat more than a full-grown man. This chick likes big portions. I tried to throw up once or twice, but it was far too time-consuming and stinky and unpleasant, and I wasn't organized enough like my friend to carry mouthwash and toothpaste and boxes of mints. In my short-lived experiment, I found out it burns way more on the way up than the way down. Plus, I heard it rotted your teeth, and I didn't want my teeth to look any worse than they did. So I had to start eating more fruits and vegetables and get rid of junk food. Does switching to organic junk food count? Let's pretend for a moment it does. Turns out that eating half a meat lover's cheese stuffed crust pizza for dinner, followed by an entire pumpkin pie after the only fruit you've had came in the form of the 6 or 7 jelly donuts you consumed for breakfast, is not a recommended health plan by any dietitian. Who'd have thunk? Have you ever heard the phrase that it's what's on the inside that counts? Well, I've not only heard it, I believed it. Well, actually I believed it for other people, but not for me. It's odd that we can overlook the most glaring flaws in another while at the same time magnifying the minuscule in ourselves. We compare the worst thing in us to the best thing in someone else. We pine over their perfect butts and despise our wobbly bits. Now you may be wondering how I got over the self-loathing. It took a while, and it certainly wasn't from anyone I knew giving me compliments or telling me that I looked better than I thought I did, or that there was nothing wrong with me. The way I moved past it was by studying what God, who actually created me, had to say about his workmanship. The following verses are paraphrased from the Bible. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. My gray hair is a crown of glory. Man looks at outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. Beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord shall be praised. Beauty shouldn't come from outward adornment. The unfading beauty is a gentle and quiet spirit. We were created in God's own image. God formed us from the dust and breathed life into us. I could say something about each one of these verses, but the one that really cracked my mirror, in a good way, was 2 Corinthians 4:7, which says, But we have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellency of the power may be of God, and not of us. Wait, what? We are not these dust buckets that we live in? It's just a place where our treasure hides, where the Holy Spirit resides? And then I got to be thinking that those of us with the most cracks in our jars of clay can often be a better testament to the power and the greatness of God because he can shine through all of those cracks. Perhaps people can see God better when they're not distracted by our perfect symmetry, lest people think that what we accomplish in life is due to our good looks and not to the favor and the grace of God. Letting the truth of God's word pervade gave me a checkup from the neck up and a much needed makeover of the mind. I was able to stop connecting who I am to this shell that I live in. My getting told at auditions that I'm too short or too fat or too tall or too pale no longer became a hit on my self-worth. I just wasn't what they were looking for. They wanted a 2-story house or a rambler or a tiny house or one with a tan exterior. I just wasn't right for that job. And when there was a job calling for a white double-wide trailer, I'd get my shot. I got to the place where when people put me down, I didn't crumble. I found I was now able to separate what they said about my exterior to who I was. The same way that we know that we're not the house that we live in. Whether we live in a mansion or an RV, it doesn't have to define us because it's not us. We are not our size. Of course, we can make healthier choices for the sake of being on this earth disease-free long enough to carry out the mission God put us here for, but letting our size keep us from finding joy in our daily life is no longer acceptable. Being upset about our skin color, moles, freckles, texture of our hair, or the length of our torso does us no good because these are the little things we have no control over. And if you can't do anything about it, why let it take up valuable real estate in your mind? If we are not able to do the little things, why be anxious about the rest? Luke 12:26. Sure, I wear makeup, get highlights in my hair, wear push-up bras and heels, and tried facial peels. A couple times I even tried facial injections. I wear one of those stretchy, tight encasings under my clothes sometimes to suck my gut in. I even took to heart one of the previous comments and got my teeth fixed. But bashing my head against the wall because my eyes don't match is no longer worth my valuable time. There are billions of different versions of beauty, just as there are billions of people in the world. We may have many preferences for what we think is hot or not, and many schools of thought about whether it's okay to have cosmetic surgery, or even whether we should wear makeup, show our hair, expose our knees, or heck, in some religions, only our eyes and hands are acceptable and to display in public view. The poems and prose in this book aren't about whether fixing yourself up is okay or not. This is a book about finding out who you really are, accepting and loving yourself, and knowing what God thinks of you, your true identity, and what's really important. After all, 100 years from now, is what we looked like going to matter? Or is our legacy going to be the thing that we're remembered for? Let's make that be the case. It doesn't matter if you're pro or con on the plastic surgery debate. It doesn't matter if you wore skirts down to your ankles or that your virgin hair has never been colored. It doesn't even matter that simply for beauty's sake you've been poked more than a pincushion. What matters is how you lived your life. Did you follow your calling? Did you live life to the fullest? Did you enjoy the body God gave you? Did you sacrifice your time in service of others? If the only thing people remember about you is that you had work done or looked great in a pair of jeans, then you haven't made the contribution to this world that needs to be made, that only you are capable of making. So let's get the focus off of us. Let's get the focus off of our flaws. Let's look for a way to serve the world, which is in desperate need of our help, and ask ourselves, how can I use my gifts, my time, my money, my talent, my ideas, and compassion to aid a fallen world and point people to the God who answers all? That's what Poetic Prescriptions for Eternal Youth is about. Thank you.